How you doing, everybody? I'm Brian Mirando. This is the Free For All podcast, and today I'll be joined by Ron Hawkins from Lowest to the Low just in a few minutes. But before we get to that, I would like to take a second to give my condolences and pay tribute to Canadian stand-up comic and broadcaster Mike Bullard. Mike Bullard passed away October 11th at the age of 67 years old. He was the host of Open Mic with Mike Bullard and The Mike Bullard Show. Two shows I actually grew up watching and remember watching as a kid. I was a big fan of Mike Bullard. I really liked his style of interviewing. And I even take some stuff that he used to do and I bring it onto this show. In fact, if you guys look, every week in the corner, I have on that little stand right there, I have those albums. I got that idea from Mike Bullard. I remember watching him as a kid when he'd introduce bands to play on his show. He used to have these like vinyl-sized cardboard pictures of the albums. And this is when vinyl went away. This isn't like 2024 now where you see the talk show hosts today, they have the vinyl record of that. This was before vinyl made a comeback. So I remember being a little kid, 6 and 7 years old, watching that thinking, that's the coolest fucking thing I ever saw. So I just want to take a second and give my condolences to his friends and his family at this time. It's such a horrible loss. So my thoughts and prayers are with them. Anyway, I just want to remind everybody, next week I'll be sitting down with legendary saxophone player Stan Harrison. He'll be here promoting his new record, Some Poor Soul Has a Fire. I cannot wait for this interview. He has worked with everybody from Southside Johnny to Little Steven to Bruce Springsteen, Mick Jagger, David Bowie. Working right now with They Might Be Giants. I cannot wait to sit down and talk to him. It's going to be a complete honor, but that's next week. Today, my next guest is a Canadian singer-songwriter, lead singer for the band Lowest of the Low, as well as his two side projects, The Rusty Nails and the Do Good Assassins. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Hawkins.
Ron Hawkins, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah, no problem, guys. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I just got to ask this before we get started. Has anybody ever mistaken you for the legendary Rockin' Ronnie Hawkins from the band?
Surprisingly not. I think there was one episode maybe. I remember being in the band, The Rusty Nails, and we played Kitchener, and I think there was like a big plate glass window I could see out of from the stage, and then all these bikers sort of roared up. And I just said to the person who was taking the tickets, I said, you might want to ask them, before you take their money, you might want to ask them who they're here to see, because I suspect it's probably not me. And that's literally the only time this ever happened.
Really? Have you ever had a chance to meet him at all?
No, I'm not really too into it. So it's like, our sort of musical styles don't seem to gel, and it's like, that's not kind of a world I spent a lot of time in. That whole band thing and everything, I was really not into that kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, no one ever ran into him, never crossed paths.
Now I want to talk to you about your record that came out a year ago, the Plunderdome.
Yeah.
It's a really good record. I'm really liking it. It still has that old Lowest of the Low style to it, kind of like, from Shakespeare My Butt. That's one thing with you guys. You guys never really changed your sound up a little bit. I mean, on Hey Kid, it got kind of that ska feel to it. Do you like doing that, just keeping it, the way it is? You don't like go with trends or really change things up?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I know a lot of people think that we cover quite a few styles, like, over the records. Like, I don't, to be honest with you, I don't, other than my voice and Dave on the Kid, I don't really hear any similarities between Shakespeare and Plunderdome, just in terms of, like, Shakespeare sounds so acoustic to me overall, and kind of so sort of folk punk based, and this stuff seems much more soul based, and the ska stuff and the harder punk stuff. Like, I don't hear that really. I think the thing is, when you have the same singer and same songwriter, clearly there's going to be a certain things that I deal with that I come back to. And, and Dave, it's pretty much the same unit other than Steve on the guitar, so probably that's a bit baked in, the sound as well.
Well, what I meant by that statement is, it doesn't sound exactly like Shakespeare. It sounds like the Lowest of the Low. I always get the same feeling. Like when I turn on the Lowest of the Low record, I can tell it's Lowest of the Low because you always kept that somewhat authentic sound that you guys have. No matter what genre you're playing, it always does sound like Lowest of the Low. You have one of those distinctive voices. When I listen to a Lowest of the Low record, I can still tell it's Lowest of the Low. You're not one of these bands where you guys go away, come back with the next record, and it's like, whoa, what the fuck is this? And the music isn't as polished as most other bands are that I hear today. A lot of these bands, they try to squeak it up, they try to change it up, they go and do all these different crazy techniques. You guys always kept the same techniques. You've never, like I said before, you've never gone with trends, and you've always stuck to your true self. So that's what I've always liked about you guys.
Yeah, no, I would like to say too, like the thing I love about the low, and that I think sort of sets us apart a little bit is it's not too polished, right? Like it's never been, and it still isn't. It's almost, when you come see us live, like there's an element of like the roof could come off this, like that's a bit hairy at times, and I like that. I like the fact that we haven't polished it up too much, and like I like the way I play rhythm guitar, like it's very percussive and everything, but it's not very fancy. Like I'm not very polished as a guitar player, so I like to keep that kind of that element.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that kind of percussionist with your guitar playing, because I hear a lot of that with Gossip Talking Blues. It's got almost like that rhythm with the guitar. It's almost like you're playing drums with a guitar almost.
Yeah, even when I do solo shows, like I do a lot of solo shows, these days with stuff all over my catalog and everything, people will often say to me, well, I almost have to give the drummer up there, because it's like I'm kind of punching those chords and hitting the guitar,
It's almost like you're playing along with the drummer.
Yeah. And I got that sort of because, I grew up as a big Clash fan, and I sort of went to school on Joe Strummer as a rhythm guitar player because, there's some really great rhythm guitar players. You don't hear about them that much because the fancy stuff is in the lead guitar. But like Joe Strummer and John Lennon are two guys who I really think were amazing rhythm guitar players because they didn't just play chords. There was real sort of, as I say, like kind of percussive attitude to it. And they linked up with the drummer almost like a bass player would, And I used to be a bass player, that's the thing. Like, when I started, I was a bass player, so I think like a bass player on the rhythm guitar. I'm always listening to Dave on drums, trying to punch the same fills and, make sure I'm in sync with him.
Now, it's really funny you mentioned the Clash. I heard that you wanted to try and get Mick Jones to produce your last record, I Get Pop, but he was unavailable.
Yeah.
You wanted to get him to produce that record.
We kind of couldn't track him down. It was like, our manager at the time wound up talking to Bertie Rhodes, who was the manager of the Clash back in the day, and he was trying to track Mick down. And then there was also some dispute inside the band. There were some guys in the band that are very caught up in the others, and there was some dispute inside the band because some people were like, yeah, you're going to need to have a lot of, like a big bag of pot there for Mick. And then there was some people in the band were like, do we really need to kind of, babysit the producer and kind of try to find, we're going to have to go find him. I'm like, and my attitude about making records is like, I said, if Mick Jones is sitting on the couch behind us, even if he doesn't say anything, you're going to hear it through the speakers because, we would be so chuffed to have Mick in there. Like to me, I produce records as well, and like setting the vibe inside the recording studio is probably 70% of it, I would think. Yeah, you got to know the songs and you got to be able to play, but creating a vibe that's really exciting inside the studio is a major part of it. So that's what we thought. Mick would provide that, if nothing else. And I think he's also a very good producer, but if he's sober and awake.
Have you ever met Mick Jones, or is that just an idea you guys came up with?
Never met any of those guys. I think he's in LA, and that was like, we tried to track him down and realized, it's probably going to be expensive, and we might not be able to find him, and that's what turned out. Because we wound up working with David Bottrell, who is, he's a world-class producer in his own. I mean, he's a more famous producer than Mick Jones is because Dave Bottrell worked with Peter Gabriel and Tool and all these bands, and he's got lots of Grammys and stuff like that. So we worked with him. And it was great. It was a great experience. Dave Bottrell was a fantastic guy and a great producer.
Yeah, because I was wondering that, because I heard in an interview you guys mentioned that story, you wanted to get Mick Jones. I thought you might have known him or something, too. I'm like, wow, that would have been really cool to get Mick Jones on. I didn't know you guys didn't know him. You were just trying to get him as an idea.
Yeah, because every time it comes up, I mean, we're not in that boat now because Plunderdome, we basically produced ourselves. And, like I have a little studio, I produce records, and Mike's a guitar player. He has a studio, and he produces records, and everybody's been doing it long enough now that we just decided to produce Plunderdome ourselves, and we did all the beds in the place that we rehearsed in, and then did all our other tracks at our local studios and stuff like that. And I think, strangely enough, as I say, Dave Bottrell was a world-class producer, but there's something about Agit Pop that I feel like some of those things I was talking about, some of the sharper edges are rounded off a little bit. It's a little bit more produced and a little slicker than I think we really like. And then when we this is what we sound like. This is what we sound like live, except with a little bit of bells and whistles on top. And I think that's where we sit. We just wrapped up another record, which we're just finishing now. And we've done it the same way. I think we'll probably always record our own records from now on because we feel like we've really captured that, the vibe of the band and how we sound.
And it's also, too, who knows the band better than you guys instead of having to listen. I mean, producers are good to have, ideas off of. When you've been doing it as long as you have, do you find it's just like, just let us do it ourselves and we can just, go with the flow and do what we feel is right instead of having to have some producer get involved, which I'm sure you guys had to put up with early on in your careers, guys telling you what to do when you're starting out. This would be an idea, and then you're sitting there like, I don't know, that's not really the direction I was looking for, but the producer, in the beginning, you got to kind of, listen to what they tell you,
Well, in the beginning, we were kind of unmanageable, and we were just young punks who just didn't really listen. So it was like, when anybody would do that, as I always joke, like 8 middle fingers would go up, and we would just do it the way we wanted to do it. But we would be dealing with a producer. But the good thing about a producer, the reason I think we don't really need one now is the band is at a point where we can get along and we can, sort of best idea wins, and there's no egos involved. Whereas, sometimes you need a producer because the band, if you need it to the band, they're just to fight their way through it, right? And sometimes you need the headmaster to snap his fingers and go, lads, come on.
Like a mediator.
Yeah, make sure that there's somebody with some authority of the band that can make decisions when the band is, has been arguing for an hour about how loud the hi-hat should be,
Well, did that band fighting have anything to do with the breakup in '94 after your second record?
Oh, yeah, of course. Sort of a classic scenario, which is that we were pals and we started a band, and we were kind of, we wanted to be successful, but we wanted to be successful on our own merits and on our own level, right? And we started playing around. We had this amazing grassroots audience, and then it built really fast. And then the low became kind of big when CFNY picked up, or The Edge picked up some songs for singles. That's when it really blew up. And it became sort of nationwide. And it became kind of famous seemingly overnight. And then the trouble started, right? Because then they have you on a kind of a bit of a hamster wheel where we cross the country 6 times a year. And we're just constantly, we play 250 shows a year, stuff like that. And, and Steven and I, the other guitar player, we were like classic brothers. We love each other to death, but we also fought like crazy. And, that's okay when you're working it all out, but once you've crossed the country that many times in a band and you see somebody 24 hours a day, it becomes very difficult. And then you add on to that, in order to deal with all the downtime and the boredom and the stuff you should be talking out, but you're not. A lot of people develop, some kind of substance abuse problem, which we all kind of in our ways did, and me probably the worst. And then you add that to the fighting, and then you have a total recipe for disaster. So by '94, I think we had just sort of had enough. And back in those days, nobody ever said to anybody, like, hey, why don't you guys take 4 months off? It was just like, go, get in the van, make another record, go, So if we thought about taking a break, maybe that would help too, and save the band, but we just didn't then, so we put the pop all over, everybody flipped out, and we're in the scenario we're in now, which is original members, minus Steven. Steven left in 2013 to go do solo stuff. And his stuff is great. His new stuff is really amazing. And he's writing more songs than he ever did when he was in the band. So I think the breakup it was great for everybody.
When you guys broke up in '94, you guys got back in 2001, and you guys did the live album "Nothing Short of a Bullet," which was a great live record, one of my favorite live albums. When you guys decided to do that live album, how did you guys go about picking the set list?
I think it was recorded over the 2 nights at the warehouse that we did these big reunion shows at the warehouse in Toronto. And, some of it is as simple as you go through all the tapes and go, hey, did anybody fuck up in this one? And you find the ones where you find a handful of songs where nobody screwed up. And you go, okay, well, so that's what we're choosing from because we don't want to have all these, farts and bloopers on it. I I mean, these days you can fix that stuff, but we also were very interested in it being a real document of what happened, right? So we don't really want to fix parts that are wrong. So yeah, we went with a handful of songs, and then then we just probably did it like we would do a set list. Like the way we usually make a set list would be kind of come out big with a couple of bangers, and then make sure that the set list has some dynamics. So you're going through some bangers and everything, and then maybe bring it down to mid tempo, and then maybe some ballads in the middle, and pick it back up, and then probably end with something like Rose and Gray or Need a Little Walk Tonight or something like that, a bigger one. And just try to keep take people on a bit of a journey with the sequence of the songs.
Now, do you guys ever get tired of doing them songs from Shakespeare? I mean, it's been almost 30 years now. Is there any songs like, oh my God, I gotta play Gossip Talking Blues, or I gotta play, Salesman Cheats and Liars again tonight? Do you guys ever get sick of doing that, or do you guys love doing those songs?
Yeah, I mean, we love it, and the thing is, by now, there's so many records that we don't do that many of them. Like in a show that has 20 songs in it, I would say we would do 4 from Shakespeare, and then stuff is from all the other records as well. And certainly we're now back to a point where, when you talk about those reunion shows in 2001, just when the band broke up originally, and then I had a band called the Rusty Nails, and when people would come to Rusty Nails shows and yell out for those songs, I was, kind of pissed, and I'm like, I'm moving on, I'm not looking in the rearview mirror, I'm looking forward, right? And I would get all, sort of like, I'm not a fucking jukebox, kind of get that kind of vibe going. But by the time we did the reunion in 2001, with the Low, there was actually people in the crowd yelling out for Rusty Nail songs at the Low show. And I was like, alright, so I guess we're even, right? Like we're sort of back in a place where they're just all songs now. And I can just, pick songs from whatever part of the catalog. And yeah, so by now I play all of that stuff. And we're sensible enough to know that, if we put a couple of deep cuts in there, that not everybody's going to know, then maybe we follow it up with one from Shakespeare that people will know, or, from Christine, or, whichever record it is, Sword Fiction, or, just something that people know. So you can kind of, again, it's just all about a journey, live or on a record, whatever, sequencing the songs so that you hold on to people's attention as long as you can. And I'm a guy who wants to push the crowd. And because I'm the songwriter, I'm like, fuck it, the release show for Plunderdome is just Plunderdome, and at the end we'll play 3 Shakespeare songs and say goodnight, right? And everybody's like, well, maybe we put some other songs from the other records, and, I always want to push the crowd, like, no, they gotta grow with us, man, they gotta fucking come along for the ride, And so usually we fall somewhere, a compromise in there somewhere where, we sprinkle it around, but we make sure that we play lots of stuff from the new records when they come out.
You just give them a different variety of everything you guys have done.
Yeah, we also know that I'm all together with all the other bands I've been in and my solo record. I think this will be my 21st record when we released it next one.
Whoa!
So that's a lot of records, and I'm going to turn 60 this year. So all of these things together, I also know how blessed I am to do this because I can't think of. Maybe I can think of on one hand or maybe 2 hands the amount of bands that were around in the 90s that are still doing stuff now.
Yeah.
I feel very blessed that people still give a shit, and, so that's important for me to keep in mind, right, is that I can't just be up there being a diva, right, like I gotta remember, hey, I have a community of people that have followed me for 30 plus years, like I gotta honor that.
A lot of these musicians feel they have to, cater to the audience, which in a way I understand, just like I just read recently, Oasis just got back together. And they just came out strictly and said the people on the reunion tour are going to probably be disappointed because we're not going to do all our hits. We're going to do a lot of songs people aren't familiar with.
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody, every artist, and I think that everybody at some point faces this question is like, do I want to go out and just be some kind of a revivalist jukebox of myself, or do I want to continue all my life to be a fresh, current artist who's making new material? And if you choose that, then you have to strike some kind of compromise because, I'm also a fan, right? So it's like if Billy Bragg comes to town and I hear that he's brought a band with him and that he's doing stuff from all over the catalog, I will admit that I'm less excited than if I find out that he's coming by himself and he's going to do mostly stuff off the first 3 records and then stuff from the rest of the records because, those are the records I think he's the most Billy Bragg. When he added a band, I was like, well, one of the coolest things about sing that well, you don't play guitar that well, but you have amazing things to say and you put them across really well. So now you have a band. I'm just comparing you to everybody else who has a band, and your band isn't as good as other people's bands, right? So I feel like as a fan, I know how that feels. Like it's like I want the lead to cut.
Absolutely. Because I remember I saw the Stones.
Right.
Yeah, I like Billy Bragg.
But I remember I went and saw the Stones in 15 when they came to Buffalo here. And they did like all their, they did all the hits everybody wanted to do and stuff too. And I was thinking, like, if they came back again and they did the same thing again, I'd be kind of disappointed. I like to see a little bit of variety too, changed up a little bit too. I mean, they obviously have to do their hits, but also I want to hear some of that other stuff too, besides the same 15, 18 songs that they've been doing the last 40 years. So that's kind of where I see too as a fan.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of like both artists as people and audience members as people. Most people are lazy, so most people are going to, if they don't have to do too much work, they won't. Both the people who are making the music and the people who are listening to the music. And it's like, but what I like is to, and we're lucky to have a community of people that we've built up around us that, want to work. I mean, I'm as prolific as I've ever been, and I don't know why, and I don't know when it'll ever stop. But I mean, I'm interested in doing it. So like, I want to work hard and make, art every day of my life. And then we have this great crowd around us that, certainly they don't want us to just go fucking raw dog and not ever play anything off the old records, but they are certainly willing to give us the time of day on the new ones. And in fact, we threw a new one in. We played an outdoor festival last weekend, and we threw a new one in that isn't even released yet. It's going to be on the next record that's coming out. And I have to say, it seems to get as much applause as, Charles Aylis or something. Like, it was like, we've got a pretty cool crowd that's willing to listen and go, well, hey, let's hear what this is,
Well, it's also got to be cool as an artist too, because if you just came out and did all your, your hits, and then maybe the one single off the new record, you're not really going to get a response or people's approval of what you've done on the record. Like you're talking about right now, putting out this new record. If you only went on tour, did everything off Shakespeare, everything else from the other catalog, maybe 2 songs off off the new record, you wouldn't really know what people's opinions were about the record because you're just playing the 2 songs that everybody knows off that record. If you threw in all the songs off that whole album, and say even if you did 3 or 4 songs off the new record each night, you would say, oh, the fans are really loving the new record instead of just the same 2 songs that people are familiar with.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then it's almost like, why did I make this record? Nobody gives a shit about it. Why did I even waste my time, making the record?
There's the other group of people, which is I know lots of artists who will admit to me in private that the only reason they make the records is just so that they can go back out and tour again and make some money. And whatever. I mean, I've learned at this point in my life, if anybody's just in it for the long haul and they're doing it, then I try not to judge why or how they do it. But that's not the way I do it. Like, I don't want to just be turning out whatever crap we have to turn out so that we can get on the road and play, we do a walk tonight and make a big bunch of money. Like, but at the same time, I also know, having been around this long, is that no matter what we do, and no matter how good Plunderdome is, if you were in a university bar at your university in 1991 and you first heard Shakespeare in My Butt, there is no way that Welcome to the Plunderdome can compete with Shakespeare in My Butt. No matter what we do, no matter how good it is, it can't compete with that other record because now you have to get a babysitter to come to the show and you have a mortgage and you have all kinds of shit in your life. It's just not as romantic.
Yeah.
Across it, because it was when you were a kid and you were like out all the time and everything was new and you saw this band and they're my band and so we understand that too. And I find the reason I know this is because I went to tour in Australia by myself just as a solo act and nobody knew the songs there, so it's like all the songs from Shakespeare like that were on an equal playing field to all the songs from Acid Pop or Plunderdome, and it's very interesting to see because Rosie and Gray or Fatalist or Magdalena, they weren't the big songs. They were lots of people liked them, but they weren't any bigger than some of the songs off the new record because people have level playing field to judge them on.
Just one more thing I want to say before we move on. With a band like Oasis, this is probably going to be a one-time tour. They're not going to be touring year after year after year. Where with the Lowest of the Low, you guys play all the time. You come to my town once or twice a year.
So if I go and see the Low live and they don't do Hey Kid or Hand of Magdalena or Letter from Bilbao or On a Bad Day, it might suck, but I'll just check you guys out next time you come and hope you guys play those songs next time. Where we're Oasis, the songs that they play are probably going to be the last time that these fans are going to get to see those songs live. So that's just something else I want to add on. But anyway, now you talk about Shakespeare in My Blood, which is probably one of your biggest records. How long did it take you to write those songs? When you first wrote them? How long did that whole record take to write?
That's way back through the midst of time, so I'm not really positive, but I feel like it was about 6 months. I feel like there were a few songs, there was maybe 2 songs left over from the band that we were in before that called Popular Front, which was me and David, the drummer, and Steve, the other guitar player. Three of us were also in Popular Front. So we had a couple, I think Tammy and Caroline and Bloodline were left over from that band. And then everything else I think was written in sort of mid-1990 through the early 1991, and then we recorded Shakespeare summer of 91 and released it at the end of 91. So yeah, I'd say about 6 months to 8 months or something like that probably. And I was just in a real amazing place artistically in my life, which was that I just broken up from a long-term relationship and had moved downtown and had I basically rented a room in a house full of crazy punk rock kids, and I had a journal with me, and I just walked around the city. I was in a bar every night, and I was just having adventures during the day, and I was just writing stuff down in this journal. And I always talk about it as if I felt like I was the protagonist in the film of my life, like there was a film going on, and I was the lead actor in that film, and it was just a very romantic atmosphere to be in, and so I was just writing like crazy, And that's sort of what I learned to. When we were in Popular Front, we used to write these big capital P politics songs at other places in the world, and it was sort of like, I don't know why, but just around when I was writing for Shakespeare, I started to realize I should bring all that stuff home and write about the Carlisle Bridge, and write about Sneaky Peas, and write about, all the really close places, write about what you know. That's sort of writing 101, but I have to learn that over time,
Okay. Now, I had Dale from the Headstones in here not too long ago, and I had a segment with him called Canadian Association. It's a game where I name off a couple Canadian artists, and you can give me your opinions about them, if you have a story about them, or what it was like touring with them or working with them. You down?
Right.
All right, first one up from the Headstones, Hugh Dillon.
Oh yeah, well, Hugh and I wound up at a bunch of after-hours parties a lot. I remember that, and because I was a bit of a reckless maniac, and as you know, Hugh also was.
Oh yeah.
And, ironically, we're both sober now, so you're either dead or you're sober at our age. So yeah, we actually didn't play a lot of shows with them back in the day. I don't cross paths with them because we were all touring across the country and everything. And I think my band Rusty Nails played with them a couple times, but yeah, I always thought they were awesome, lots of energy.
Okay, Jeff Martin from the Tea Party.
I can't stand the Tea Party, and when I first heard the Tea Party, I thought, is this like a Doors cover band or something? So I know that they probably hate that, and he probably hates that specifically, but come on.
Do you have any bad interactions with them, or are you just not a fan of the band?
No, I just think they're everything I hate about music. I think that they want to be rock stars, and I feel like they're trying to revive some really outdated idea of sort of rock and roll excess or something. It just seems to me like that their influences are obvious, and that I'm not a fan of the music, and I'm not a fan of their behavior in terms of what it represents. As an artist.
That's kind of funny you mentioned that, because I saw Jeff Martin do a sit-down interview. I forgot for what magazine, and the question was, he was sitting there in a chair, lights were down, he had a cigar in his mouth, he was sitting there having a cigar, and the guy asked him, who are your favorite musicians? All-time musicians. He goes, the best musicians in the world are in my band. I'm like, what's such a, cocky, arrogant answer to give? Out of everybody from, the Stones to the Beatles to them, you pick your guys. That's just such an arrogant answer, I felt.
Yeah. Well, now maybe I like them. I know. It's like, it's just, I can underline this just by saying that, some people would, maybe look at my band and they go, look, dude, your influences are pretty obvious too, and that may be the case. But one thing I know about my band is that we want to, we sort of got involved in music to build some kind of community and hopefully make the world a better place to be in. So that's why I'm involved in music. And so when I see people who are kind of just doing the rock star trip and, or it's just really about moving units and selling shoes, that, that bores me and I just don't have any time for it, Which is why, as I say, it has become so exciting to me because they really are passionate and mean everything they say.
Gordy Johnson from Big Sugar.
The loudest band I've ever played with.
Same thing Dale said.
Back in the day, we were like, our sound man once sort of charted us off the stage with some kind of decibel meter or whatever. He said you guys were like 120 decibels coming out the stage. And I said, well, that doesn't mean anything to you. What does that mean? He said, like a jet plane is like 110 decibels or something. He's like, it's amazing that many of you can hear. And so then we played with Big Sugar for the first time we ever met them. Was like, I think we played in Halifax, a place called the Double D's. And I walked in the door and I was like, I don't think I can stand in here. They opened for us. I was like, I don't think I can stand in this room because it's so fucking loud. It's insane. I've heard lots of stories about Gordy being a bit of a prima donna and being a bit of a diva as well, but I can't verify any of those. They're all sort of secondhand, so I won't claim that I know that. But they are, holy shit, were they loud.
Here's an interesting one. Jeff Healey.
Yeah, Jeff Healey, I don't have much of a history with him. Like, I'm not a blues guy. Like, I'm not really into blues as a musical form, so I never really followed him, and I never really met him, so I don't really know him that well. I know him sort of secondhand through my friend Chris Block, who played saxophone with him, and Chris was also in my band, Rusty Nail, so he said that Jeff was a fantastic guy, and really great to work with and stuff like that, but I don't have any personal experience.
All right. How about Matthew Good?
Boy, you really chose some challenging ones. Matthew was a very challenging dude. I knew him back in the day. We shared a manager from Vancouver named Frank Weber, and I met Matt when he was just kind of coming up. And I was like, yeah, seems like a very talented guy. Like, he writes good songs, but he was very, very problematic as a person. And my friend Dave Gann, who now is he played in our Bergman's band at the time when I met Dave. And now he plays in 5440. We've been friends for a very long time. He was in that band. And it was sort of like, it was nothing but pain being in that band back in the day. And, so I just for probably 2 decades just thought, oh, Matt's just an asshole. But then it turns out, Matt got diagnosed as being bipolar and he takes meds for it and stuff like that. And I just thought, oh, okay, well maybe, I know you can be bipolar and still be an asshole, but it just means, I thought, all those things that I thought he was just being an asshole about, maybe he was actually just struggling with his mental health, So I'm not really sure where that falls, but yeah, I think he's a very talented guy, and I think he's ambitious and everything, and I don't have a lot of great things to say about him as a guy, but as I say, it's a bit colored by my experiences with him, which may not be fair, because I don't know how we know where he is with his mental health and stuff, but I also know there's been some controversy lately, which I don't know much about, but there was some more, troubles recently.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's hard, it's hard to be, like, all of these guys I'm critiquing and, calling assholes and stuff, but it's like, it's hard, it's really hard to be, I think people have this impression, like, being in a successful band, it's pretty much just, one green light after another, and you're just, like, floating around in your swimming pool drinking Jack Daniels, but it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of hardship, and it's a lot of rejection, and it's a lot of, it's tough. It's a tough job.
Last one, legendary musician Tom Cochrane.
So again, Tom Cochrane is, as I say, I'm going to turn 60 in November, but Tom Cochrane predates me enough that I don't really have any kind of, I certainly have never run into him or met him.
Oh, really? You never really got the chance to meet him? Really?
No, I mean, I only know the lifestyle. I only know the hits, right? I don't really know anything about what he's been doing, or I just don't have any real experience with him. And as I say, I kind of came up in the punk rock thing, so it was like most of the people who were on the radio or whatever weren't really in our circle. You know, like we were in a kind of I was in the kind of like punk rock, folk music, reggae, ska, that kind of world. So it's like, we didn't run into a lot of these guys until the low took off, and then I started meeting people. Like, for instance, I think it was 2000, and I guess it was about 2012. The Low played a show in Buffalo with Hip, and Gord came out of his trailer and walked up to me and said, "Hey, Ron, like, is it impossible that we've never met before?" And I said, "Yeah, it seems pretty crazy that we've never met before, because we're both in successful Canadian bands. We're both lead singers who write the words and are very interested in the words. They mean a lot to us, and we're lyricists and stuff." And I said, "Yeah, it's crazy that we've never met." But so we met in 2012.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah, he was such an amazing musician. It's such a shame that we lost him so soon as Gord Downie.
Yeah, for sure. It's just, it underlines the fact that the universe is pretty random, right? Like, you lose people that you shouldn't lose, and then people who are crappy and do shitty things live to 108,
Did you ever get to record at the Bathhouse or get to know Gord Downie besides that one moment? Did you get to become friends with him better on after that encounter? Or work with the Hip, or any of the guys in the Hip for that matter?
No, the only time I ever met him was backstage at that show. We never recorded at the Bathhouse. Is it Bathhouse or Bathhouse?
The Bathhouse.
Bathhouse. Never recorded there. We ran into, we had a funny moment with it Johnny Faye? Is that his name? Johnny Faye or Johnny... Anyway, one of those guys, we went to see our buddies in the Weaker Dance. The Weaker Dance were opening for, in Hamilton at Cops. And we had a show, Lo had a show somewhere else. And John and the Weaker Dance said, "Hey, come to the after party after the show. You can come to the show and then come to the after party," because our show was letting out earlier than theirs. So we went to the Hip show, watched it, and then we went down. We're in this cavernous parking garage looking for this after party in Cops Coliseum. And one of the Hip guys comes walking towards us, and he's pissed out of his mind. And he's got his entourage and everything, and he walks up to me and he goes, "Oh my God, I just want to say, it's so great to finally have played with you guys. We really love your band, and it was so great that we got to play with you." And I just played along, and I'm like, "Oh man, it's been a lifelong dream of mine as well, and thanks for letting us open and everything." And so we know a guy who was also the guitar tech for the Hip. He used the guitar tech for us, and he said it was about a week later that this guy sort of smacked his forehead and said, "Oh fuck, that was going for below. That wasn't the Weaker Dance." So he realized about a week later that he was talking to the wrong guys, and he was just hammered out of his mind. And I'm sure you were thinking, "What a dick! He just played along with me and with it." But yeah, that's my experience with Hip. Just meeting Gord once and teasing somebody else in the band. I thought it was a Johnny.
Now, you mentioned, as I just mentioned, those Canadian artists and you going over to Australia. Why is it that a lot of you Canadian artists don't get that much success in the States, besides Buffalo? And maybe, I know some guys hit Detroit. Why is that? Is there a reason? What was that?
I think Canadians just don't go. Yeah, they don't go. Like the Weaker Dance did very well in the States, and it's because they just hammered the States. They toured forever. Went back all the little towns, all the big towns. They just kept going back and back and back, and that's what you have to do. And as I say, it's pretty hard work and pretty grueling. And I think an awful lot of Canadian bands just aren't up to it or don't want to do it, so they don't put the legwork in. The only other way to do it is to have just such a massive single that goes North America wide, but that's also very difficult to do. So.
No, I only asked that because I just saw a review from Gordy Johnson's website on Big Sugar's website, and they got reviews from Jack White from the White Stripes and Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. They're two big fans of them. Of Big Sugar, and I just thought it was interesting. You got two major artists like that reviewing your record, even though you never had that much success in the States. That two guys like that would even know who they even were.
Yeah, well, the internet, there's ways to know these days.
Yes, I know they got a couple dates.
I have to let you know that I probably got about another 5 minutes or something, and I have to split because I got another rehearsal.
All right. Well, real quick before we get going, you got a new record coming out, you said?
Yeah, we're going to release a record in April. We wanted to release it in October, but our label said basically like, whoa, boys, pull back the reins a bit. They're moving too fast. So we're going to release it in April.
Oh, in April 2025?
Yeah.
Okay, can't wait for it. Now, I know you're really crunched for time, so I have a real quick segment here called the Hot Seat. I'm just going to ask you a list of questions just to get to know you a little bit better. That's okay with you?
Sure.
All right, first question. Stones or the Beatles?
Beatles.
Why?
I just think they're better craftsmen. I like the Stones, I think, just lean into the blues all the time. That's what's under all of their songs, I think. I mean, I like the early modern Stones, not to get too detailed about this question. When the Stones were kind of more modern, I like the pop songs, the earlier stuff, but I think the blues, they lean into the blues mostly all the time. I think the Beatles covered more ground.
Your all-time favorite songwriter?
Oh, God. I'd have to put the Clash at the top for me, so I think it would be Strummer and Jones.
Awesome. All-time favorite venue to play at?
All-time favorite venue? Well, I'm going to keep it close to home and say we just played the concert hall, which is where we'll release that next record in Toronto, and I went to see a million bands in the 80s there and have such a fondness for it, and they've done a great job of restoring it. So I'm going to say the concert hall, Toronto.
Okay, the record you're most proud of making, and that could be throughout your entire career, not just Lowest of the Low.
I would say two of them, Crack Static, which is the Rusty Nails record, and probably Welcome to the Plunderdome. Like that, it is. I mean, I know it's the most recent, so sometimes writers are always like their last one is their favorite, but I think we really, as I said, nailed how the band sounds, and I'm really proud of what's on that record. So yeah, those two, Crack Static and Welcome to the Plunderdome.
Okay, I think we kind of settled this earlier in the interview, but the nicest Canadian artist you ever shared a stage with?
Nicest Canadian artist. Who is the nicest Canadian artist? Well, I have to say, I'm not sure we ever shared a stage with the Naked Ladies, but Jim Cregan, the bass player for the Naked Ladies, is the nicest person alive.
Okay. And last question, if you weren't a musician, what would you be doing?
I would be in jail, probably. If I wasn't a musician, I might want to be a fiction writer.
Okay.
I also like or an animator. I also used to, when I was a kid, I used to make little animated films. So maybe, fiction writer, animator.
All right, Ron. I really want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today. It's been a real honor.
Yeah, super.
All right, thank you, buddy.
For the technical difficulties of the meeting.
Yeah, don't worry about it. All right, buddy. Have a good day. Thank you.
Okay, you do that.
Yep. Bye.
All right, everybody, that's it for today. I want to thank my guest Ron Hawkins for stopping by. And if you can, go check out their latest release, The Plunderdome, available on Spotify and all streaming services. And a reminder, once again, next week I'll be joined by legendary saxophone player Stan Harrison. Until then, do good to others like you do to yourself. I'm Brian Mirando. See you again next week. All right.